They told us the perimeter was absolute, a line drawn in blood and concrete that no sane soul would ever cross. But sanity is a currency I spent a long time ago, back when the first signals started bleeding through the static of the dead zone. If you are hearing this recording, it means I have done the impossible. I have breached the airlock. I am inside Sector 9. The first thing that hits you isn't the radiation. The Geiger counter on my wrist is ticking a steady, rhythmic lullaby, well within the green. No. The first thing is the smell. It is not the stench of rot or the metallic tang of ozone that the elders whispered about around the barrow fires. It is the smell of old dust, of air that has been trapped in a tomb for a century, stale and heavy, clinging to the back of your throat like a suffocating velvet cloth. Every breath feels like I'm inhaling the ghosts of 1,000 years. I'm standing just beyond the threshold of the Great Gate, the massive blast doors that were welded shut before the fall. From this side, the metal is not rusted, it is scorched. Black carbon shadows are etched into the steel, silhouettes of people who were banging on these doors when the flash came. I run my gloved hand over them, and the soot smears, fresh as if it happened yesterday. It's unnaturally quiet here. The wind outside usually howls like a wounded animal, tearing through the canyons of the wasted city, but here, the air is still. Dead still. Not a single particulate of dust is moving in the shaft of pale, sickly light filtering down from the cracked dome high above. It feels like the world is holding its breath, waiting for me to make a mistake. I take my first step forward, and the sound of my magnetic boot crunching on the glass-littered pavement echoes like a gunshot. It bounces off the towering, brittlest skyscrapers that loom over me, their windows blown out, looking like the hollow eye sockets of giant concrete skulls. I scan the horizon. There are no bodies. That's the rumor, isn't it? That Sector 9 eats people. That there are no corpses because the sector consumes them. I see abandoned vehicles, a convoy of armored transport trucks frozen in a gridlock that never cleared. Their tires have long since disintegrated into rubber puddles, rims resting on the asphalt. I approach the lead vehicle, an APC with military markings that don't exist in our history books. The driver's side door is slightly ajar. My heart hammers against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage, as I raise my rifle and peer inside. Empty. But not just empty, clean. There is a coffee cup sitting on the dashboard, the ceramic white and pristine. A clipboard rests on the passenger seat, the paper yellowed but the ink legible. It's as if they just vanished. Vaporized into the ether. I look up at the towering megastructure in the center of the sector, the spire. It pierces the smog layer, a monolith of black glass that seems to absorb the light rather than reflect it. A low hum begins to vibrate through the soles of my boots. It's not sound, it's a frequency, deep and resonant, shaking the fillings in my teeth. The stories said the machine was broken, that Sector 9 was a graveyard of technology. They were wrong. The city isn't dead. It's sleeping. And I think I just woke it up. A shadow flits across the periphery of my vision, too fast to be a drone, too large to be a rat. I snap my head to the left, aiming down the sights into a dark alleyway draped in hanging moss that looks more like cobwebs. Nothing. Just the darkness staring back. But the hair on the back of my neck stands up, prickling with primal awareness. I am being watched. Not by cameras, not by scanners, but by something biological. Something that has been waiting in the dark for a very, very long time. I check my biomonitor. My pulse is spiking to 140. I need to keep moving. Standing still is a death sentence in the wasteland, but here, moving feels like swimming through molasses. The air is getting thicker, denser. I look down at my hand and realize the fog isn't weather. It's coming from the vents in the street, a pale, green mist that curls around my ankles like sentient vines. I have to reach the spire. The signal originated there. The signal that used my brother's voice code. He died 3 years ago, or so we thought. But the loop plays every night at 0300 hours. Sector 9. Level 4. I am safe. The water is clean. It's a trap. I know it's a trap. But I'm walking into it anyway, because hope is the cruelest mutation of all. The green fog isn't just rising, it is blooming, unfolding from the subterranean grates like the petals of some poisonous, gaseous flower. It is heavy, rolling over the pavement with a disturbing viscosity, burying the skeletal remains of the armored convoy in a waist-deep sea of verdant smog. I stumble back, the heels of my magnetic boots scraping against the asphalt, fighting the urge to run. Panic is a luxury I cannot afford. Panic burns oxygen, and in a sealed environment suit, oxygen is the currency of life. I force a breath through my nose, tasting the recycled rubber and the faint, metallic tang of the filtration scrubbers kicking into overdrive. My heads-up display flickers, amber warning text scrolling across the periphery of my vision. Atmospheric anomaly detected. Particulate density increasing. Seal integrity at 98%. The numbers are cold, unfeeling, a stark contrast to the frantic drumming of my heart. I cannot stay in the open. The street is becoming a river of this chemical choke damp, and I am standing on the shoreline of a rising tide. I pivot, the servomotors in my leg joints whining in protest, and scan the building facade to my left. It's a monolithic structure of gray reinforced concrete, the architecture severe and imposing, stripped of any ornamentation. A bank, perhaps? Or a government archive? The heavy glass revolving doors are jammed, blocked by a pile of debris that looks suspiciously like barricade sandbags which have petrified into stone over the decades. Beside it, a maintenance door hangs off its top hinge, creating a dark, inviting maw. I squeeze through the gap, the jagged metal edge scraping a white scar across the shoulder plating of my environmental suit. I am inside. The silence here is different. Outside, it was the silence of a held breath. Inside, it is the silence of a mausoleum. The air is still, but the green mist is beginning to bleed in behind me, curling over the threshold, exploring the floor like seeking fingers. I move deeper into the gloom, switching my visor to low-light amplification. The world washes out into grainy shades of monochrome green and gray. This was a lobby. The scale of it is dizzying. The ceiling vanishes into darkness 3 stories up, supported by pillars thick enough to contain a reactor core. And again, the impossible cleanliness strikes me. There is no graffiti. No erratic scatter of bullet casings. The floor, a polished terrazzo of black and white stone, is covered in a uniform layer of gray dust, undisturbed for what might be a century. It's like a blanket of snow, perfect and terrifying. My boots leave deep, violating footprints as I walk, the crunching sound amplified by the acoustics of the cavernous space. I pass a reception desk, a curved slab of obsidian-like material. Behind it, a chair is overturned. That is the only sign of struggle. Just one chair, knocked on its side, as if the person sitting there stood up in a hurry and never came back. I approach the desk, wiping a gloved finger across the surface. The dust is an inch thick. Underneath, the surface is pristine. I see a terminal, its screen dead and black. A mug sits there. World's best dad. The irony creates a bitter knot in my stomach. The dad is gone. The world is gone. Only the mug remains. I need to get higher. The mist outside is rising, and if it enters the ventilation intake of this building, the ground floor will become a kill zone. I spot a stairwell at the far end of the lobby, the emergency exit sign above it long dead, the tritium paint faded to a dull, sickly gray. I begin the climb. The stairs are industrial steel, grated to let dirt fall through, but they ring like bells with every step. Clang. 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 I try to tread lightly, but the suit weighs 80 pounds, and stealth is a memory from a life where I didn't wear a tank as a second skin. As I ascend to the second floor, the hum I felt outside returns. It vibrates through the handrail, traveling up my arm and settling into my bones. It's stronger here. The building itself is resonating with the frequency of the spire. It feels like the structure is shivering. I reach the landing of the third floor and push through the fire door. It opens into a mezzanine that overlooks the lobby. I walk to the railing and look down. The sight stops the breath in my throat. The green mist has filled the lobby floor completely. It is a churning, opaque ocean, swallowing the reception desk, hiding my footprints. And something is moving in it. Ripples disturb the surface of the fog, wake lines trailing behind unseen forms. They are long, serpentine shapes, creating furrows in the gas that slowly fill back in. They move with a fluid, predatory grace, circling the area where I had been standing just moments ago. My biomonitor spikes again, 150 beats per minute. I am not alone. The biological readings were right. Sector 9 has an ecosystem, and I am an invasive species. I back away from the railing, moving into the shadows of the third-floor corridor. This floor appears to be offices. Cubicles stretch out in a maze of waist-high partitions. I move through them, rifle raised, stock pressed tight against my shoulder. The visuals are hauntingly mundane. A calendar on a wall, frozen on October, the year illegible. A jacket draped over a chair, the fabric stiff and brittle. It's a museum of the exact moment the world ended. I find a window that faces the street and carefully wipe away a circle of grime. The view is apocalyptic. The street below is gone, drowned in the green fog. The tops of the armored trucks are mere islands in the smog. But above the fog layer, the city sprawls out, a canyon of steel and shattered glass. And there, dominating the skyline, is the spire. It is closer now, or feels closer. It is a needle of black void against the gray sky, and pulse light is traveling up its length, veins of crimson energy throbbing in a rhythmic heartbeat cadence. That's where the signal is. That's where the brother I buried, or thought I buried, is calling from. I sink down against the wall beneath the window, needing a moment to stabilize. The psychological weight of this place is heavier than the gravity. I pull a hydration tube to my lips and take a sip of lukewarm water. It tastes of plastic and purification tablets. I close my eyes for a second, and instantly, his voice plays in my mind, not the loop from the radio, but a memory. We were kids, before the fall, playing in the hydroponic gardens of Sector 4. He was older, stronger. He promised he'd always watch my 6. Sector 9. Level 4. I am safe. The radio loop repeats in my head, overlaying the memory. Is it him? Or is it a recording of a ghost trapped in a machine that refuses to die? If he is alive, he has been here for 3 years alone. What does 3 years of this silence do to a human mind? What does it do to a soul? A sound snaps my eyes open. Not the hum. Not the wind. A click. A distinct, mechanical click, coming from the end of the corridor. It sounded like a bolt unlocking, or a claw tapping against tile. I hold my breath, listening so hard my ears ring. There it is again. Closer. It's the sound of weight being shifted, of quiet, deliberate movement. I check the hallway. The shadows are long, stretching away from the dim light filtering through the dirty windows. Something is disrupting the dust motes in the air about 50 meters down. The air currents are shifting. I slowly rise to a crouch, the servos in my suit whirring softly, too loud, always too loud. I raise the rifle, the holographic sight projecting a red dot into the gloom. The dot hovers over a dark doorway at the end of the hall. Nothing moves. But the feeling of being watched is physical, like insects crawling on the skin beneath my suit. I am being hunted. The shadow I saw earlier wasn't a hallucination. It followed me inside. It climbed the walls while I climbed the stairs. It knows I am here. And it is patient. I need to keep moving. Staying static is suicide. I scan the room for another exit. There is a service corridor marked maintenance to the north. If I can reach the utility shafts, I might be able to traverse the buildings without exposing myself to the street, or the open hallways. I take a step, and the floor tile cracks beneath my boot. The sound is like a gunshot in a library. Down the hall, the darkness shifts. A shape detaches itself from the ceiling, a silhouette that is all wrong, too many limbs, jagged angles. It drops to the floor with a heavy, wet thud. It doesn't roar. It doesn't scream. It just breathes, a wet, rattling rasp that echoes down the corridor. I don't wait to see its face. I turn and sprint for the maintenance door, abandoning stealth for speed, my heavy boots thundering against the floor, while behind me the sound of skittering claws on concrete erupts, closing the distance terrifyingly fast. My gauntlet slams into the crashed bar with enough force to bruise bone through the gel layer of the suit, but the door holds. For a fraction of a second that stretches into an eternity. I am trapped between the unyielding steel and the nightmare closing the distance behind me. I can hear the wet slap of its limbs on the linoleum, a chaotic, scrambling rhythm that defies bipedal logic. I throw my entire body weight against the door again, screaming a silent roar inside my helmet, and with a shriek of tearing metal and failing hinges. The rust gives way. I stumble into the darkness of the utility chase. The momentum nearly sending me sprawling over a tangled nest of conduit cables that snake across the floor like dormant vipers. I kick the door shut, gripping the manual wheel of the deadlock. The metal is cold, slick with a greasy condensation that has gathered here for decades. I spin it, the threads grinding, just as a heavy, concussive impact shakes the frame. The steel plate bows inward, a convexity of violence appearing right at head level. Dust rains down from the ceiling tiles above, coating my visor in a fine gray powder. I back away, rifle raised, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Another blow comes, then a scratching sound, long, hard talons testing the integrity of the metal, screeching like chalk on a blackboard. A sound that vibrates through my teeth. Then silence. Not the peace of absence, but the predator's pause. It is listening. It is smelling the pheromones of my fear leaking through the exhaust ports of my suit. I do not wait to see if it can breach the steel. I turn my attention to the utility shaft. The air here is different. It is thick, humid, and carries the heavy, metallic tang of copper and stagnant water, layered with the sharp ozone scent of decaying electronics. It is a vertical labyrinth of industrial entrails. Massive pipes wrapped in crumbling asbestos insulation run vertically into the gloom above and below, sweating beads of black water. The only light comes from the erratic strobe of a failing emergency beacon somewhere far below, painting the walls in brief, nausea-inducing flashes of orange. I move to a service ladder, the rungs coated in a slime that reflects the dim light of my suit's tactical lamp. Every movement is a calculated risk. The servos in my legs whine softly as I test the weight-bearing capacity of the first rung. It groans but holds. I begin to climb, ascending into the throat of the building. The acoustics here are treacherous. The shaft acts as an echo chamber, amplifying the dripping of water into sounds that mimic footsteps. I pause every few meters, straining my auditory enhancers, filtering out the ambient hum of the building's settling structure to listen for the skittering of the thing below. 10 meters up. 20. The physical exertion is beginning to blur my vision. The suit handles the heavy lifting, but the stress is metabolic. I can feel the sweat pooling at the base of my spine, the recycled air in my helmet growing stale and warm. I check my oxygen levels, 78%. Manageable, but declining faster than I'd like. I force my breathing to slow, implementing the stillness drills from basic training. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. The panic is a chemical reaction. I can override it. At the 4th level service platform, I step off the ladder onto a metal grating that overlooks the abyss of the shaft. Here, the machinery of the old world lies in state. Huge ventilation turbines, silent and rusted, sit like sleeping giants. I weave through them, my boots making dull, magnetic clanks on the grating. I find a recessed alcove behind a generator and crouch, needing to recalibrate my navigation. I pull up the holographic map on my wrist display. The blue wireframe flickers, distorted by the radiation or the interference from the spire. It shows this maintenance shaft connecting to a skybridge on the 5th floor, a tenuous link to the adjacent tower. That is my path. If I can cross the gap, I can lose the hunter in a new maze. I take a moment to wipe my visor, and that's when I see it. In the corner of the alcove, huddled against the cold flank of the generator, is a shape that is unmistakably human. Or it was. It is a skeleton, clad in the tattered remains of a blue maintenance uniform. The fabric has largely disintegrated, revealing bones that have turned a dark, mahogany brown. I crawl closer, the morbid curiosity of the survivor taking over. The skull is resting on its knees, the posture one of resignation, not violence. This person didn't die fighting, they died hiding. Beside the skeletal hand lies a data pad, its screen cracked, the casing covered in a thick layer of grime. I pick it up, blowing the dust away. It's dead, of course. No power could last this long. But etched into the plastic of the back cover, scratched frantically with something sharp, are words. I shine my light on them, tilting the pad to catch the shadows in the grooves. IT mimics the voices. Don't listen. A chill that has nothing to do with the damp air cuts through me. I drop the pad. It clatters loudly on the grating, the sound echoing endlessly in the shaft. Asterisk, it mimics the voices. Asterisk, my hand flies to the radio transponder on my chest, my fingers hovering over the volume dial. The loop. My brother's voice. Sector 9. Level 4. I am safe. Is it him? Is it really him? Or is it the predator, learning, adapting, using my own hope as a lure to drag me deeper into its web? The creature downstairs, did it know where to wait? Did it know I would come to the office floor because the signal led me there? I stand up, staggering slightly as the vertigo of the revelation hits me. I am not the hunter. I am not the rescuer. I am the prey in a game I don't understand. I look up toward the gloom of the 5th floor. The only way out is up. I have to keep moving. If the signal is a trap, I need to find the source and destroy it. If it's real, I need to get to him before the thing that mimics voices gets there first. I resume the climb, but the silence of the shaft has changed. It no longer feels empty. It feels heavy, pregnant with intent. The shadows between the pipes seem to stretch and contort. I reach the access hatch for the 5th floor and spin the locking wheel. It spins freely, too freely. The mechanism is broken. I holster the rifle and wedge my fingers into the gap, engaging the hydraulic strength augmentation in the suit's arms. With a groan of straining servos, I force the doors apart, creating a gap just wide enough to squeeze through. I spill out onto the 5th floor, expecting another office, another maze of cubicles. But this is different. The air here is freezing, breathless. The outer wall of the building has sheared away entirely, leaving the floor open to the sky. I am standing on a precipice of concrete and rebar, staring out into the void. The wind howls here, unblocked and savage, whipping the green fog into swirling eddies below my feet. And there, straight ahead, is the spire. Without the dirty glass to obscure it, the scale of the anomaly is paralyzing. It is a monolith of matte black material that seems to absorb the light around it. The red veins of energy pulsing up its side are brighter now, violent and rhythmic. I can feel the pulse in my own chest, syncing my heartbeat to the alien rhythm of the tower. Between me and the next building is the skybridge, a skeletal structure of glass and steel, heavily damaged, swaying slightly in the wind. It spans a drop of 300 meters into the toxic soup below. It is the only way forward. I step toward the edge, the wind buffering my suit, triggering stabilization warnings in my HUD. I look down at the bridge. The glass panels are shattered. The floor is a grid of rusted metal beams. It's a tightrope walk over hell. As I hesitate, Measuring the structural integrity with my eyes, the radio crackles again. The static is louder this time, sharper. Sector 9. The voice cuts out, then returns, breathless, urgent. They are watching. Don't trust the light. It's not the loop. It's a new transmission. My breath catches in my throat. Jax? I whisper, breaking radio silence for the first time, my voice trembling. Jax, is that you? There is no answer, only the howl of the wind and the hum of the spire. But the cadence was different. The emotion was there. Fear. It wasn't a recording. Someone is alive in that tower. I grip my rifle tighter, the knuckles of my gloves whitening. I step onto the swaying bridge, the metal groaning under my weight, and move out over the abyss, leaving the safety of the shadows behind for the exposure of the void. The first step onto the bridge is not a movement of courage, but a surrender to necessity. My boot connects with the rusted grid of the walkway, and the metal screams, a high-pitched, harmonic vibration that travels up through the soles of my suit and rattles my teeth. I freeze, my hand gripping the jagged remnant of the doorframe behind me, waiting for the floor to give way. It holds, but only just. The wind-up here is a physical antagonist. It doesn't just blow, it strikes. It hammers against the polycarbonate chest plate of my rig, shoving me sideways with the force of a heavy hand. I trigger the magnetic clamps in my boots, feeling the heavy thud as the electromagnets engage with the decaying steel beneath me. It's a false sense of security. The magnets might hold the steel, but if the steel itself shears away from the concrete anchor points, I will simply be attached to the debris as it plummets 300 meters into the toxic fog. I release the doorframe. I am committed now. Below me, the city is a graveyard of jagged silhouettes drowning in the green soup. The fog churns like a restless ocean, rolling in slow, lethargic waves that conceal the horrors of the lower levels. Occasionally, a gap in the mist reveals the skeletal remains of a transit highway or the crushed dome of a park, silent and gray. I force my eyes up, fixing them on the spire. From this vantage point, the alien architecture is nauseatingly clear. It doesn't look built, it looks grown. The matte black surface ripples with a texture like obsidian muscle, and those red veins. They aren't just lights. They are fluid. I can see the crimson luminance flowing upwards, pumping something vital from the earth into the heart of the tower. The rhythm of that pulse is hypnotic. Thump, thump, thump. It syncs with the blood rushing in my ears, creating a disorienting resonance that makes the world tilt. I take another step. The bridge sways. It's a pendulum motion, sickeningly slow. The suspension cables that once held this skywalk rigid have snapped on the left side, hanging like severed tendons in the gloom. This leaves the entire structure listing heavily to the right, forcing me to walk at a 45-degree angle, fighting gravity with every inch of progress. My suit's gyroscope is flashing red warnings in the corner of my HUD, screaming about equilibrium failure, but I swipe the notification away. I don't need a computer to tell me I'm walking on a razor's edge. Don't trust the light. The words from the radio rattle around inside my helmet, competing with the howling wind. What light? The red pulse of the spire? The sickly green glow of the fog? Or the beam of my own shoulder-mounted lamp cutting through the dust? Paranoia is a cold worm in my gut. If the creature mimics voices, did it mimic the warning too? Is it trying to make me afraid of the light so I'll turn it off? So I'll stumble in the dark? Or was that really Jax, breathless and terrified, trying to save me from a trap I can't yet see? Every possibility is a knife twisting in my psyche. I have to compartmentalize. Focus on the geometry of survival. Look for rust. Look for stress fractures. Move. 10 meters out. The wind gusts, a sudden violent updraft carrying the smell of ozone and rotting copper. The bridge groans, a deep, mournful sound of metal fatigue. I look down at the grating. The mesh is so corroded in places that it has dissolved entirely, leaving gaping holes wide enough to swallow a leg. I have to navigate a labyrinth of disintegration, placing my feet on the thickest support beams. My breathing is too loud in the helmet. Harsh. Ragged. I dialed down the audio input from the external microphones to dampen the roar of the wind, trying to find a center of calm. It doesn't help. The silence just amplifies the thudding of the spire. Halfway across. The skybridge dips here, sagging where a primary load-bearing truss has buckled. To move forward, I have to slide down a slick, tilted section of metal plate where the grating has been torn away. I lower my center of gravity, crouching until my knees whine with the strain. I disengage the magnetic locks. They won't work on the aluminum plating, and rely on the friction of my rubber soles. I slide. For a second, I pick up speed, the abyss yawning beneath me, promising a long, silent fall. I slam my gloved hands onto the railing, the metal biting into the reinforced palms. I stop with a jolt that wrenches my shoulder. I am hanging over the dip, staring straight down. The fog parts for a singular, terrifying moment. Far below, something massive moves through the streets. A shape. Elongated, many-legged, slinking between the buildings with a fluid grace that belies its size. It isn't the predator that stalked me in the lobby. This is something else. Something ancient. It passes, and the fog closes the curtain again. I pull myself up the incline on the other side of the dip, my muscles burning. The suit's servos whine in protest, the power cell draining faster than I'd like. I check the readout, 64%. It has to be enough. As I crest the rise and the second half of the bridge stretches out before me, I see it. The anomaly mentioned in the transmission. It's a light. But not a light source I recognize. About 20 meters ahead, hovering directly over the center of the walkway, is a sphere of luminescence. It's not red like the spire, nor green like the fog. It is a perfect, blinding white. It hangs motionless in the gale, unaffected by the wind that is tearing at my suit. It radiates a silence that cuts through the storm. No sound comes from it. No hum. No crackle. Just a pure, absolute stillness. Don't trust the light. I stop dead. My heart hammers against my ribs. The sphere is blocking the path. There is no room to go around it. The bridge is too narrow, the railings too precarious. To reach the spire, I have to pass through it, or right next to it. I raise my rifle, the optic settling on the center of the white void. The targeting computer spins, trying to lock onto a heat signature, a mass, anything. It returns nothing. Target invalid. It's a ghost in the machine. I shout into the dead air, my voice cracking. Move! Get out of the way! The sphere does not react. But as I watch, the white light begins to shift. It doesn't dim, it separates. Prismatic colors bleed out from the edges, swirling like oil on water. And then a sound. Not on the wind, but in my head. A high-pitched frequency that bypasses my ears and drills directly into my auditory cortex. It's painful, a needle of sound. And within that whine I hear words. Not distinct but a murmur. 1,000 voices layering over one another. Crying. Laughing. Screaming. Is this the mimic? Is this the source? The pad said, it mimics the voices. I thought it meant a beast with a larynx capable of parrot-like repetition. I didn't think it meant this. A psychic intrusion. A siren on the bridge. I squeeze my eyes shut, shaking my head violently to dislodge the sound. Get out of my head! I scream, the raw desperation tearing at my throat. I open my eyes. The light is pulsing now, expanding and contracting in time with the spire. It wants me to come closer. I can feel the pull, a magnetic attraction acting not on my suit, but on my will. It feels warm. Inviting. It promises the end of the fear. It promises that Jax is just on the other side. All I have to do is walk into the light. I take a step forward, my boot clanging on the metal. Then another. The terror is fading, replaced by a numb, blissful lethargy. It's beautiful. Why was I afraid? The warning was wrong. The warning was the lie. Asterisk crack. Asterisk. The sound snaps me back to reality. The metal beam beneath my right foot gives way, rusted through by decades of exposure. My leg punches through the floor, plunging into empty space. The sudden drop jars my spine, my chin slamming into the inside of my helmet. I gasp, the pain sharp and blinding. The spell of the light is broken. The bliss vanishes, replaced instantly by the freezing rush of adrenaline. I am trapped, my leg wedged thigh-deep in the shattered grating, the sharp edges of the metal digging into the synthetic weave of my undersuit. I scramble, clawing at the grating, trying to leverage myself up. The bridge shudders violently. The structural integrity is critical. If I struggle too much, the whole section could detach. I look up. The sphere of light is still there, hovering. But it has changed. The white is gone. It is a dull, bruised purple now, and the silence has been replaced by a low, throbbing growl. It's angry. It knows I stopped. I grit my teeth, tasting blood. Not today, I hiss. Not today. I engage the emergency hydraulics in the leg servos. Overdrive. Confirm. The suit responds with a mechanical hiss. The servos in my trapped leg flare with power. I brace my hands and push, the metal of the bridge screaming as I tear my leg free, bending the rusted steel bars like distinct clay. I roll backward, sprawling onto a safer section of the grating. I don't look at the light. I don't listen to the voices. I scramble to my feet, ignoring the throbbing in my knee, and I run. I run straight at the purple sphere. I don't stop. I don't hesitate. I lower my shoulder, tucking my head, and charge. As I pass through the space where the light hangs, I expect burning heat, or a solid impact. Instead, I feel a rush of impossible cold, a vacuum that sucks the breath from my lungs. The voices in my head scream, a deafening chorus of agony, and then silence. I burst out the other side, stumbling, gasping, my boots skidding on the metal. I am across. I am standing on the concrete ledge of the adjacent building, the bridge behind me. I spin around, rifle raised, ready to fire. The bridge is empty. The sphere is gone. The wind howls through the twisted wreckage of the walkway, and the only light is the malevolent red pulse of the spire. Looming directly above me now. I collapse against the cold stone of the wall, my chest heaving, checking my vitals. Heart rate, 160. Oxygen efficiency dropping. But I am alive. I look at the entrance before me, a blast door, blown off its hinges, leading into the darkness of the spire's complex. Above the door, half obscured by black mold, is a sign, asterisk Sector 9 Research and Containment. Asterisk. I reach for the radio dial, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. Jax? I whisper into the static. I crossed. I'm at the gate. Silence. Then a click. And a voice that chills my blood, perfectly mimicking my own tone, my own inflection, my own fear from 10 seconds ago. Get out of my head. Get out of my head. I stare at the radio dial on my wrist, the small ember light flickering like a dying star in the abyss of the storm. The voice, my voice, echoes in the silence of my mind long after the transmission cuts. It wasn't a recording. A recording has a noise floor, a digital hiss, a flatness that betrays its artificial origin. That was wet. That was biological. That was the sound of my own vocal cords vibrating in a throat that isn't mine, spoken by a mouth that has never known the shape of human words. My thumb hovers over the transmit button, trembling with a violent, spastic rhythm I cannot control. I want to scream at it. I want to demand to know where Jax is. But I know, with a cold, sinking certainty, that if I speak again, it will only learn more. It will learn the cadence of my anger, the pitch of my despair. It is harvesting me. I click the dial to the off position. The static vanishes, leaving me alone with the howling wind and the groaning of the twisted metal behind me. I am severed. No link to the ship. No link to Jax? Just me, the suit, and the crushing weight of Sector 9 looming overhead. I turn my back on the bridge, forcing my eyes away from the void, and look up at the blast door. The entrance is a maw. The blast doors, massive slabs of reinforced titanium designed to withstand orbital bombardment, have not been opened. They have been peeled. That is the only word that makes sense. The metal curls outward, like the skin of a fruit stripped back by a giant, unseen hand. Thick, jagged petals of steel jut out into the walkway, coated in a layer of black, velvet-like mold that seems to absorb the beam of my shoulder light. I step closer, my boots crunching on debris that I realize, with a jolt of nausea, consists of shattered riot shields and bleached, fragmented bone. The battle here was short. It was one-sided. And it happened a long time ago. I step through the breach. The transition is instant and jarring. The howling wind of the planet's surface is severed the moment I cross the threshold, replaced by a silence so profound it feels like pressure against my eardrums. The air inside is still. Dead. It has a weight to it, a stagnant density that the external sensors on my suit immediately flag as hazardous. High concentrations of spore particulate. Unknown biological agents. Oxygen levels at 40%. If my helmet seal fails in here, I will suffocate, but not before my lungs are colonized by whatever is growing in the dark. My flashlight beam cuts a solid cone through the gloom. The air is thick with dust, millions of tiny particles suspended in the zero airflow environment, frozen in time. They swirl sluggishly in the wake of my movement, dancing in the light like microscopic ghosts. I move forward, the servos in my legs whining softly, a sound that seems deafening in this tomb. I am in a reception area. A security checkpoint. To my left, a desk made of synthetic polymer has been crushed in the center, collapsed into a V-shape. Behind it, a chair lies on its side, the fabric rotted away to reveal the yellowed foam beneath. I scan the room, moving the barrel of my rifle in slow, sweeping arcs. Shadows stretch and contort against the far walls, playing tricks on my peripheral vision. Every time I blink, the afterimage of the purple sphere burns behind my eyelids, a reminder that the intruder is still with me. Perhaps not physically, but psychically. I check my biomonitor. Pulse is down to 130. Manageable. But the cortisol levels are redlining. I am in a state of hyperarousal, every nerve ending screaming for a threat that isn't manifesting. It's the waiting that kills you. The silence is worse than the screaming. Focus, I whisper, the sound of my own voice startling me inside the helmet. Sector 9. Research and containment. Find the data core. Find Jax. Get out. I repeat the mantra, anchoring myself to the mission parameters. I walk past the security desk toward a bank of elevators. The doors are fused shut, the metal warped by intense heat. Above them, the floor indicator is dark, dead glass. The shaft is not an option. I swing my light to the right, illuminating a heavy fire door labeled Stairwell A, Maintenance Access. The handle is a horizontal bar, rusted red. I grip it with my gloved hand. It doesn't budge. I engage the suit's strength enhancement, feeling the localized pressure on my forearms as the exoskeleton amplifies my torque. With a screech that sounds like a dying animal, the rust gives way, and the door groans open. The stairwell is a throat of concrete leading down into the bowels of the spire. The air here is colder, dropping 10 degrees in the span of a meter. I verify my suit's thermoregulation. It's compensating, but I can feel the chill radiating through the soles of my boots. I begin the descent. 1 step. 2. The echo of my footsteps is sharp, metallic, bouncing off the hard surfaces and returning to me slightly distorted. As if the building itself is mocking my intrusion. I reach the first landing. On the wall, Someone has scrawled a message in what looks like black marker, though the strokes are frantic and uneven. Asterisk, they don't eat. They change. Asterisk, I stare at the words. The handwriting degrades toward the end, the last letter trailing off into a jagged line that runs down to the floor. I crouch, examining the concrete beneath the graffiti. There is a stain there. Dark, crusty, ancient. I don't need a forensic scanner to know it's blood. They change, I murmur. Change what? The environment? Themselves? Us? I continue down. Flight after flight. The deeper I go, the more oppressive the atmosphere becomes. The black mold I saw at the entrance is thicker here, growing in intricate, vein-like patterns across the walls. It pulses, very faintly, in the periphery of my light. I stop and lean in close to examine a patch. It's not just growing, it's organized. The hyphae are arranged in a grid-like structure, almost like circuitry. I reach out a finger, terrified but compelled, and almost touch it. Asterisk, don't. Asterisk. The thought is sudden, sharp, and it isn't mine. I recoil, stumbling back against the railing, raising my rifle. Who's there? I shout, my voice cracking. Silence. I spin in a circle, checking the landing above, the stairs below. Nothing. Just the dust. Just the dark. Was it the mimic? Or was it instinct? Survival intuition manifesting as an internal voice? I swallow hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. I can't trust my eyes. I can't trust my ears. And now, I can't trust my own mind. I reach the bottom of the stairwell. A heavy bulkhead door stands ajar, blocked by a metal crate that was wedged into the opening. I squeeze through the gap, the chest plate of my suit scraping against the steel. I emerge into a vast, cavernous space. The atrium. It is immense. My flashlight beam dies before it hits the ceiling. Rows of workstations stretch out into the darkness, silent monoliths of a forgotten science. In the center of the room, suspended from the ceiling by heavy chains, is a massive object wrapped in thick, translucent plastic tarping. It hangs there like a cocoon prey in a spider's web. I can't make out the shape beneath, but it is large, at least the size of a shuttlecraft. I move toward the nearest workstation. The monitors are dead, covered in a layer of grime so thick it looks like felt. I wipe a gloved hand across the surface of a desk, clearing a space. Underneath the dust, there is a photograph in a cracked plastic frame. A man and a woman, smiling, holding a dog. The colors are faded, the image bleached by time, but the happiness in their eyes is unmistakable. It hits me harder than the blood on the stairs. This was a place of work. People drank coffee here. They complained about meetings. They had families. And then, something opened the door. I set the photo down gently. My hand brushes against a stack of papers. They are brittle, yellowed. I pick up the top sheet. It's a logistical report. Asterisk subject 9 alpha shows increased cognitive adaptation. Containment protocols insufficient. Requesting immediate transfer to level 4. Asterisk. Level 4. I look around the vast room. The signage on the far wall, barely visible through the gloom, reads asterisk level 1, administration and logistics. Asterisk. I have to go deeper. The realization sits heavy in my stomach, a cold stone of dread. Jax wouldn't be an admin. If he's alive, if he's hiding, he'd be in the secure zones. Or if he was taken, he would be where the subjects are. I start to move across the atrium, navigating the maze of desks. The silence is broken only by the soft thud of my boots and the rhythmic hiss of my rebreather. Asterisk hiss. Click. Hiss. Click. Asterisk. It is a hypnotic rhythm, one that lulls the mind into a trance. I shake my head, forcing alertness. And then I hear it. It is faint, barely audible over the sound of my own breathing. A scraping sound. Metal on concrete. Slow. Deliberate. Asterisk scrape, drag. Scrape. Drag. Asterisk. It is coming from the other side of the atrium, hidden in the deep shadows beyond the reach of my light. I freeze. I hold my breath, killing the noise of the respirator for a few agonizing seconds. Asterisk scrape, drag. Asterisk. It's getting closer. It's not the mimic. The mimic was psychic, internal. This is physical. This has mass. I slowly crouched behind a row of server banks, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I extinguish my shoulder light. The darkness is instant and total. I am blind, relying entirely on the audio sensors of my helmet, which I crank up to maximum sensitivity. The world becomes a landscape of sound. The settling of the building sounds like gunshots. The airflow in the vents sounds like a hurricane. And through the noise, the scraping continues. Asterisk scrape, drag. Asterisk. I activate night vision. The world washes out in grainy shades of green and black. The noise in the visual feed is high, the radiation in the walls interfering with the sensors, but I can see. I peer over the top of the server bank. 50 meters away, something is moving between the desks. It is humanoid, but wrong. Elongated. The limbs are too thin, too many joints. It is dragging something behind it, a heavy, metallic object that sparks against the floor. It wears the tattered remnants of a lab coat, hanging off its frame like rags on a scarecrow. It stops. The head snaps up. It has no face. Where the eyes and nose should be, there is a smooth, concave surface of black glass, reflecting the faint ambient radiation of the room. But it has a mouth. A vertical slit that runs from the chin down the throat, currently stitched shut with thick, copper wire. It tilts its head, the black glass face scanning the room. It doesn't see with eyes. It senses. It's looking for a heartbeat. It's looking for heat. I press myself into the floor, willing my body temperature to drop, engaging the suit's thermal masking. The suit hums, a tiny vibration against my skin. Please work, I beg silently. Asterisk, please work. Asterisk. The creature stands motionless for an eternity. Then, it lets out a sound, a low, static burst of white noise, exactly like a radio tuned between stations. It is searching for a frequency. It turns. It looks directly at the server bank where I am hiding. It takes a step. Asterisk scrape. Asterisk. It knows. The silence that follows that single, damning step is heavier than the concrete ceiling above us. It presses against my eardrums, a physical weight that threatens to crush the fragile sanity I have left. The creature stands amidst the wreckage of the administrative office. Its elongated silhouette cutting a jagged tear in the green-hued grain of my night vision. The black glass plate where its face should be is not merely reflecting the room, it is absorbing the environment, drinking in the data. My heart is a traitor. It slams against my ribcage with such violence I am terrified the vibrations are traveling through the suit, through the floor, and straight into the sensors of that abomination. The thermal masking system of my suit is a distinct, high-pitched whine in my ears, audible only to me, but to that thing? I realize with a jolt of freezing terror that it might hear the electromagnetic hum. The creature didn't turn because it saw me. It turned because it heard the song of my technology. Asterisk scrape. Asterisk. Another step. The heavy metal object it drags behind it catches on the leg of an overturned desk. Sparks shower the floor, briefly illuminating the creature in true color, a sickly, pale gray flesh that looks like wet clay. Stretched too tight over a frame that has too many angles. The sparks die, and the green gloom returns. It is 40 meters away now. I need to become a void. My fingers, trembling inside the thick gloves, move to the control pad on my left forearm. I have to kill the power. All of it. The rebreather, the thermal masking, the night vision, the heads-up display. I have to become just another piece of debris in a room full of ghosts. But if I kill the power, the thermal masking dies. My body heat will bloom like a flare in the dark. It is a gamble between two deaths. One by detection of energy, the other by detection of heat. I look at the creature. The glass face is tilted, twitching slightly, like a radar dish making micro-adjustments. It is listening to the hum. I make the choice. I exhale all the air from my lungs to minimize the chest movement. My thumb presses the master override sequence. Asterisk 1. 2. 3. Asterisk. The world vanishes. The night vision cuts out, plunging me into a darkness so absolute it feels like I have been buried alive. The hum of the suit dies. The circulation fans spin down into silence. The tiny lights on my wrist display wink out. I am blind, deafened by the sudden absence of the suit's white noise, and paralyzed. Now, the true horror begins. I am trapped in a coffin of my own making. Without the circulation fans, the air in the helmet immediately begins to grow stale and hot. The suit, designed to distribute weight, now feels like lead, dragging me down into the dust. I cannot see the creature. I can only hear. Asterisk scrape. Drag. Asterisk. It is moving faster now. The sound is wet, heavy. The metal object grinds against the linoleum. Asterisk scrape. Drag. Asterisk. It is closing the distance. 30 meters. 20. My lungs begin to burn. The carbon dioxide is building up in the small bubble of the helmet. My body screams for a breath, a gasp, anything. I clench my teeth, biting my tongue until I taste copper to focus the pain, to override the reptilian urge to inhale. The scraping stops. It is close. I can feel the vibration of its presence through the floorboards. I imagine it standing just on the other side of the server bank. I imagine that black glass face peering over the top, the copper-wired mouth twitching. Does it wonder where the hum went? Does it think the machine died? A sound tears through the darkness, a high-frequency shriek, digital and piercing, like a modem screaming in agony. It is the creature vocalizing. It is a burst of data, a query sent out into the void, waiting for a handshake from another device. My suit remains dead. I remain dead. The air in my helmet is thick, cloying. Black spots dance in my vision, superimposed over the actual darkness. I am going to pass out. If I pass out, I will gasp. If I gasp, I die. Asterisk crash. Asterisk. The server bank I am hiding behind shudders violently. Metal shears and plastic shatters. The creature has struck the obstacle, testing it, or perhaps venting its frustration. Debris rains down on my helmet. A heavy piece of casing strikes my shoulder, but the suit's armor absorbs the blow. I do not move. I do not flinch. I am a stone. The creature lets out a low, static growl, the sound of a radio tuned between dead stations. Then the heavy, rhythmic footfalls resume. But they are moving away. Asterisk scrape, drag. Scrape, drag. Asterisk. It is moving toward the far wall, toward the corridor leading to the executive offices. It thinks the signal moved. It is hunting a ghost. I count to 60 in my head. The numbers are fuzzy, slippery things as the oxygen starvation takes hold. Asterisk 48, 49. Asterisk the scraping fades. The silence returns, but this time, it is the silence of emptiness, not anticipation. My thumb finds the power switch. I toggle it. Asterisk click. Asterisk. The systems reboot with a roar that sounds like a jet engine in the quiet room. Air hisses into the helmet, cool and sweet. I gasp, sucking it in greedily, my chest heaving against the restraints. The night vision flares back to life, the green static clearing to reveal the devastation. The server bank above me has been cleaved in two. The metal edges are curled outward, as if torn by a giant can opener. I look at the floor where the creature had stood. The dust is disturbed, swirling in complex vortices. And there, etched into the grime, are three-toed footprints. They are not biological. They are sharp, angular indentations. It was wearing boots, or its feet have been replaced with prosthetics. I cannot stay here. Level 1 is a hunting ground. I push myself up, my muscles screaming in protest. The lactic acid burns in my thighs. I move low, a crab-like scuttle, keeping below the level of the desks. I need to find the central access shaft. The blueprints I memorized, it feels like a lifetime ago, showed a heavy freight elevator and a parallel maintenance stairwell located in the hardened core of the building. I navigate the labyrinth of the admin floor. The environment tells a story of sudden chaos. Chairs are overturned, not from decay, but from panicked flight. A shoe sits alone in the middle of an aisle. A coffee mug, miraculously unbroken, rests on its side, a dark stain of evaporated liquid pooling beneath it. I reach the central core. The heavy blast doors of the freight elevator are fused shut, the metal warped as if subjected to intense heat. Someone tried to seal this level off. Or someone tried to keep something down. Next to the elevator is the door to the stairwell. Asterisk maintenance access, levels 1 to 10. Asterisk. The handle is a manual lever, painted a peeling yellow. I grip it with both hands. It resists, rusted frozen by years of neglect and moisture. I engage the suit's hydraulic assist. The servos whine, a dangerous noise, but necessary. With a grinding screech that sets my teeth on edge, the lever gives. I pull the heavy steel door open just enough to slip through. I slip inside and pull the door shut behind me, engaging the lock. The atmosphere in the stairwell is different. It is colder here. The air smells less like dust and more like old water and ozone. The shaft is a vertical throat of concrete and steel, spiraling down into the abyss. I lean over the railing, looking down into the gap between the stairs. My light beam cuts through the gloom, catching dust motes that hang suspended in the air like stars. Far below, perhaps 10 levels down, I see a faint, rhythmic pulsing of red light. An emergency beacon. It beats like a dying heart. Asterisk thump. Thump. Asterisk. I start the descent. My boots clang softly on the metal grating. I try to walk on the edges, where the supports are strongest, to minimize the sound. Level 2 passes. The door is welded shut. A window set into the concrete is painted over with black paint, but scratches in the paint reveal darkness on the other side. Level 3. The door here is gone entirely, blown off its hinges. A barricade of furniture and equipment blocks the doorway, piled high in a desperate, chaotic wall. Written on the wall beside the doorway in what looks like black marker, or perhaps dried oil, are the words, asterisk they learn. Asterisk. I pause, my hand hovering over the railing. Asterisk they learn. Asterisk the creature above. The way it paused, the way it scanned frequencies. It wasn't mindless. It was adapting. I continue down. The air grows heavier, pressure building against my suit. I am descending into the bowels of the facility, into the pressure cooker where Sector 9 kept its secrets. Level 4. This is the target. The landing here is cleaner, free of the debris that littered the upper floors. The door is intact, a heavy slab of reinforced titanium. There is a card reader next to it, the light blinking a sullen amber. I approach the door, my weapon raised. I don't have a keycard. I have a bypass hacking tool, but it takes time. I kneel by the lock, pulling a cable from my wrist gauntlet. I plug it into the port beneath the reader. Asterisk accessing. Asterisk my HUD reads. Asterisk encryption level, obsidian. Asterisk. As the decoder cycles through algorithms, I look around the landing. In the corner, huddled in the shadows, is a shape. I freeze, weapon instantly trained on it. It doesn't move. I creep closer. It is a corpse. Not a fresh one, but not skeletal either. Mummified by the dry, recycled air. It wears the gray tactical armor of the Sector 9 security forces. A P-90 submachine gun lies near its hand, the magazine empty. I check the body. No visible wounds on the armor. I gently tilt the helmet back to see the face. The visor is smashed inward. Inside, the face is gone. Not eaten. Erased. Smooth bone, polished and clean, as if sandblasted. My stomach churns. I look at the man's chest plate. The name tag is scratched, but legible. Miller? Jax mentioned Miller. In his last transmission. Miller says the walls are singing? I think he's lost it. I look at the wall next to Miller's head. He had scratched something into the concrete with the tip of his knife before he died. The letters are jagged, frantic. Don't listen. A sudden chime in my helmet makes me jump. Access granted? The heavy titanium door to level 4 hisses. The hydraulic seals disengage with a sound like a massive beast exhaling. The door slides open slowly, grinding on its tracks. A gust of wind rushes out from the darkness beyond, cold, smelling of antiseptic and copper. And with the wind comes a sound. It is low, melodic. A humming. Not mechanical. Organic. It sounds like a choir humming a single, discordant note, sustained forever. Miller says the walls are singing? I stare into the pitch-black corridor of level 4. The humming vibrates in my teeth. It pulls at me. It is terrifying, yet strangely inviting. I step over the threshold. The door slides shut behind me with a final, sealing thud. There is no going back up. The only way is through the song. The silence that follows the sealing of the door is not silence at all. It is a vacuum, a void where the air pressure shifts so violently that my ears pop, a sharp, stinging pain that radiates down my jaw. But even that pain is secondary to the sound. The humming. It is inside the helmet now. No, that is not right. It is inside the skull. The titanium blast door has cut off the physical route of escape, but it has also locked me in a cage with a frequency that feels alive. I stand motionless, my back pressed against the cold metal of the door, waiting for my heart rate to decelerate. But the rhythm of my own pulse seems to want to synchronize with the drone filling the corridor. It is a low C-sharp, oscillating slowly, like the bow of a cello drawn across a string made of wet gristle. I check my HUD. The biometrics are erratic. My cortisol levels are spiking into the red. The external audio sensors are picking up a constant decibel level of 40, innocuous on paper, but the waveform display is jagged, chaotic. It's not just sound, it's pressure. I take a breath, the recycled air of the suit tasting stale and metallic, filtered too many times. I push off the door. I have to move. Miller's warning, don't listen, echoes in my memory, but how does one refuse to hear a sound that vibrates the calcium of their own teeth? I raise the weapon, tucking the stock tight against my shoulder. The movement feels sluggish, as if the air here is thicker, more viscous than the levels above. My flashlight beam cuts a stark, white cone through the darkness. This level is different. The chaos of the upper floors, the barricades, the scattered papers, the signs of panic, is absent here. Level 4 is sterile. The floor is tiled in white linoleum that shines with a greasy, unnatural sheen. The walls are brushed steel and glass. It looks like a hospital, or a morgue that has been waiting for patients who never arrived. I take my first step. My boot lands on the tile, but the sound of the impact is swallowed instantly by the hum. I walk down the center of the corridor, my eyes darting from shadow to shadow. To my left, a row of observation windows looks into dark laboratories. I shine my light through the first pane of glass. The beam refracts through dust that isn't floating, it's vibrating. The particles are suspended in a fixed lattice, held in place by the sonic pressure. Inside the room, stainless steel tables sit empty. Beakers and vials rattle softly against each other, a glass percussion section accompanying the choir and the walls. I move on. The hallway stretches out, curving gently to the right. The humming grows louder with every meter I advance. It begins to manifest as a physical sensation, a prickly heat itching at the back of my neck. I feel a phantom pressure behind my eyes, a headache blooming like a dark flower. I stop to recalibrate my helmet's noise cancellation protocols. I cycle through the frequencies: white noise, pink noise, total isolation. Nothing works. The cancellation wave engages, but the hum persists, unaffected. It is bypassing the auditory canal entirely, conducting through the soles of my boots, up my skeletal structure, and resonating directly in the cochlea. I glance at the wall to my right. There is a poster framed behind plastic, Project Aeolus, harmonizing the future. The plastic cover is cracked, a spiderweb fracture radiating from the center, but there is no impact point. The plastic simply shattered from stress. Beneath the text, a diagram shows a human brain, with wave lines penetrating the frontal lobe. It looks less like science and more like an invasion. I continue, my breathing becoming a conscious effort. In, hold out. In, hold out. I have to keep my rhythm separate from the room's rhythm. If I match it, I feel like I will dissolve. A sensation of vertigo washes over me, the floor tilting seemingly 10 degrees to the left. I stumble, my hand slamming against the wall to steady myself. The wall is warm. I pull my hand back as if burned. I shine the light on the steel panel I touched. It is vibrating so rapidly it blurs slightly to the naked eye. And it is warm. Friction. The sound is generating enough friction to heat the architecture. I look closer. The paint near the seams of the wall panels hasn't peeled. It has liquefied and run down in gray rivulets, pooling on the floor like mercury. The facility is literally melting from the sound. I push forward, fighting the urge to curl up and cover my ears. I need answers. I need to know what Miller found. Ahead, the corridor opens into a central rotunda. A reception desk sits in the center, abandoned. Behind it, a large digital display flickers, the pixels dying one by one. Containment breach, it flashes, but the text is distorted, the letters stretching and compressing with the pulse of the room. I approach the desk. There is a body here. Unlike Miller, this one is not in armor. It is, or was, a researcher, wearing a white lab coat stained yellow with age. The body is slumped over the console, face down. I don't want to look. I have to look. I reach out, my gloved hand trembling, and grip the shoulder of the coat. The fabric is brittle. It crumbles under my fingers like dry leaves. I pull the body back. There is no face. There is no skull. The front of the head has collapsed inward. The bone didn't break, it dissolved. The vibration, it turned the bone to dust, leaving only the sagging, empty skin. It looks like a deflated balloon. I recoil, stumbling back, my heel catching on the chair leg. I fall hard, the impact jarring my teeth, sending a fresh spike of agony through my head. I scramble backward, crabbing away from the desk, my weapon raised at nothing. The humming swells. It sounds triumphant now. It sounds like 1,000 voices singing a vowel that doesn't exist in any human language. I squeeze my eyes shut, trying to find a center of gravity in the spinning world. Asterisk. Help me! Asterisk. The voice cuts through the hum. It is thin, reedy, barely a whisper. It didn't come from the comms. It came from the room. I freeze. I open my eyes. The flashlight beam sweeps frantically around the rotunda. Identify! I shout, my voice cracking. Who is there? No answer. Just the hum. Then again. Asterisk. It hurts. Asterisk. It's coming from the vent above the desk. A large, industrial air return, the grate bent outward. I push myself up, my legs feeling like they are filled with lead shot. I approach the vent, keeping the light trained on the black void behind the grate. Show yourself, I command. Something moves in the darkness. It is wet. Pale. A hand? No, it is too long to be a hand. It slithers over the lip of the vent, dripping a translucent, viscous fluid that sizzles when it hits the floor. It looks like cartilage. Raw, exposed cartilage, shaped vaguely like a limb, but fluid, shifting. I realize then what I am looking at. The walls aren't just singing. They are growing. The organic matter I saw upstairs, the corruption. Down here, it has merged with the acoustics. The sound is the catalyst. It is reshaping biology. I back away slowly, towards a heavy door marked Main Lab Restricted. The voice comes again, not from the vent this time, but from everywhere. It is vibrating inside my chest cavity. Asterisk. Join the chorus. Asterisk. I spin around and slam my hand onto the door release for the main lab. The motor whines, struggling against the sonic pressure, but the door jerks open. I dive through, rolling onto a floor that feels spongy, yielding. I kick the button to close the door. It slams shut, muffling the sound by a fraction. Just a fraction. I am in the main lab. I stand up, sweeping the light around. And my breath catches in my throat. This is not a room. It is a belly. The walls are covered in a thick, pulsating layer of white biomass. It looks like acoustic foam, but it is wet, veined with blue capillaries. In the center of the room, suspended from the ceiling by thick cables of this organic material, is a massive glass cylinder. And inside the cylinder, floating in a suspension of amber fluid, is the source. It is a woman. Or it was. Her mouth is open, unhinged, stretching wider than should be anatomically possible. Her throat is distended, vibrating so violently it blurs. She is the siren. She is the broadcast tower. And she is looking right at me. The gaze is not passive. It is a physical weight, heavier than the armored suit, heavier than the crushing atmosphere of this subterranean tomb. Her eyes are wide, rimmed with red, the capillaries burst and bleeding into the whites, turning them into pools of stagnant crimson. They do not blink. They do not track the floating debris in the amber fluid. They are fixed on me, piercing through the reinforced glass, through the polycarbonate visor of my helmet, and driving straight into the soft, unprotected gray matter of my brain. I cannot look away. The connection is instant and violating, a tether of pure frequency that snaps into place between her consciousness and mine. I feel the floor beneath my boots shift. It does not creak like wood or clang like metal. It sighs. The spongy material coating the deck plates compresses under my weight, oozing a thick, clear gel that coats the soles of my boots, making every movement a battle against suction. The air here is hot, impossibly humid, thick with the smell of ozone and copper. The scent of an electrical fire mixed with the iron tang of fresh slaughter. My breath fogs the inside of my visor, obscuring my vision for a heartbeat, and in that split second of blindness, the sound intensifies. It is no longer a noise I hear with my ears. It is a vibration that I feel in the marrow of my femurs, a rattle in the cage of my ribs. The frequency is peeling the layers of my sanity back like the skin of an onion. I force my legs to move. One step. The suit servos whine in protest, their lubricants degrading under the sonic assault, grinding metal on metal. I drag my right foot forward, the sticky adhesion of the floor stretching like gum before snapping free with a wet, sucking noise. I need to get closer. I need to understand the physics of this nightmare before I can end it. The cylinder is massive, perhaps 3 meters in diameter, stretching from the spongy floor to the darkened ceiling where the organic cables disappear into the ventilation infrastructure. The glass, if it is glass, is thick, distorted by the immense pressure of the liquid inside. The amber fluid is murky, suspended with particulate matter that swirls in slow, hypnotic eddies around her form. She floats there, suspended not by gravity, but by the acoustic pressure she generates. Her body is a map of devastation. The hospital gown she wears is tattered, dissolving into fibrous strands that drift around her like seaweed. Her skin is translucent, pale to the point of transparency, revealing the network of blue and purple veins that pulse violently beneath the surface. But it is the throat that commands my horror. It is distended, swollen to twice its natural size, the skin stretched so taut it shines. I can see the muscles rippling, vibrating with a speed that blurs the edges of her neck. The larynx has been altered, mutated, or perhaps surgically reconstructed into something that belongs in a cathedral pipe organ, not a human being. Her jaw is unhinged, the mandible hanging loose, dangerously low, creating a cavernous black maw from which the sound erupts. She is screaming. She has been screaming for so long that the scream has become the atmosphere. I raise my weapon, but the barrel is trembling so violently I can hear the internal components rattling. What good is a rifle against a frequency? What good is lead against a song that melts bone? I lower the weapon. I need information. To my left, a bank of consoles stands half consumed by the white biomass. The growth has crawled up the metal legs, encasing the keyboards and monitors in a calcified shell, but one screen is still flickering. It is a ruggedized military terminal, its casing cracked, bleeding sparks onto the wet floor. I wade toward it, the sound rising and falling in waves, pushing against me like a tide. The closer I get to the cylinder, the harder it is to think. My thoughts are fragmenting, dissolved by the intrusion of her broadcast. I feel emotions that are not my own, a cold, devastating loneliness, a burning needle of betrayal, a desire to unmake the world that bound her. I reach the console. I wipe the condensation from my visor with a gloved hand, smearing the grime, desperate for clarity. The screen is filled with rolling data, waterfalls of code that are corrupting in real time. I jam my finger against the manual input, overriding the lockout. The keys are hot to the touch, vibrating. I pull up the last logs. The text is garbled, characters shifting into alien glyphs before settling back into English. Subject 89. Status: resonant critical. Containment: failing. I scroll back, my eyes watering from the strain. I find a video log dated 3 weeks ago. I hit play. The audio is static, washed out by the ambient roar of the room, but the image is clear enough. It shows a man, the head researcher whose dissolved body I found in the rotunda. He is standing in front of the cylinder. He looks tired, his eyes manic. He is shouting into a microphone, gesturing wildly at the woman in the tank. I can't hear his words, but I can read his lips. He is saying, *, it's beautiful. *, he turns to the camera, holding up a chart. He points to a spike in the data. Then he turns back to the tank. He places his hand on the glass. The video glitches, tears into pixelated noise, and then returns. The researcher is on his knees. He is clawing at his ears. Blood is streaming between his fingers. He is screaming, but his scream is silent compared to hers. The video cuts to black. I look up from the screen, back to the tank. She is closer to the glass now. She has drifted forward. Her unhinged jaw is inches from the transparent barrier. The fluid vibrates around her mouth, cavitation bubbles forming and collapsing in microseconds, miniature explosions of heat and light. I feel a sudden, sharp pain in my nose. I look down at the console. A drop of red liquid splatters against the cracked screen. Then another. I wipe my upper lip. The glove comes away red. I am bleeding. The capillaries in my sinuses are rupturing. The time I have left is measured in minutes, perhaps seconds, before the soft tissues of my brain begin to liquefy. I have to make a choice. There are emergency protocols listed on the side of the tank, etched into a metal placard that is slowly being eaten by the white mold. Protocol Omega, Purge. A manual release lever sits at the base of the cylinder, encased in a glass box. Breaking that glass, pulling that lever, it would drain the fluid. It would expose her to the air. It would stop the suspension. But would it stop the sound? Or would removing the dampening fluid unleash the full, unfiltered force of her voice? If the fluid is the only thing keeping the facility from instantly crumbling into dust, draining it might be a suicide pact. The room pulses. The white biomass on the walls throbs in time with my heartbeat. The veins running through the organic foam glow brighter. The facility is metabolizing the sound. It is feeding. I look at the lever. I look at her eyes. She knows what I am looking at. For the first time, the expression in those dead, crimson eyes changes. It is not fear. It is pleading. She wants me to do it. She wants the release. Or maybe she wants the barrier gone so she can finish what she started. I take a step toward the cylinder, the floor sucking at my boots, the air thick and heavy in my lungs. I am drowning in dry air. I grip the handle of my utility knife. The glass box protecting the lever is thick. I will have one shot. I have to time it. I have to act between the pulses, in the microsecond where the pressure drops. I count the rhythm. 1. The walls expand, the white foam stretching. 2. The floor ripples, a wave of nausea rolling through the room. 3. The sound spikes, a needle in my ear. I tighten my grip. I am the intruder in her temple. I am the foreign body in the belly of the beast. And I am about to induce vomiting. I lunge forward, raising the heavy hilt of the knife. I strike the glass box. It doesn't shatter. It cracks, a spider web of fractures blooming outward from the impact point. The sound screams in protest. The room tilts. I raise the knife again, gasping for air that feels like soup. Her eyes widen. The jaw stretches further. The amber fluid begins to boil. The boiling is not heat. It is pure kinetic agitation. The bubbles rising in the amber suspension are not air, they are vacuums. Voids created by the sheer violence of the frequency tearing the liquid apart at the molecular level. I watch a single bubble rise, stretching and warping, and when it collapses against the interior of the glass. The sound is like a gunshot inside my own skull. My knees buckle. The room is no longer just a room. It is a digestive tract, and it is spasming. The white biomass coating the walls contracts, squeezing the steel girders until they groan in a metallic harmony that sets my teeth on edge. I can feel the fillings in my molars vibrating, loosening, buzzing like trapped insects. I look at the spiderweb fracture on the glass box. It is the only imperfection in a world of smooth, terrifying curves. I need to widen it. I need to shatter it. But the air has turned into molasses. Every movement is a negotiation with the atmosphere. My arm feels detached, a heavy, foreign object that I must consciously command. I lift the knife handle again. The effort makes black spots dance in my vision, obscuring the red warning lights that bathe the sector in the color of dried blood. I focus on the center of the web. The nexus of the crack. That is my target. If I miss, if I strike the reinforced rim, the recoil will shatter my wrist. She is watching. Through the boiling turbulence of the fluid, Subject 89 is perfectly still. Her hair, long and pale as bone, fans out around her like a halo of kelp. Her mouth is still open, that impossible, unhinged jaw distinct and horrifying, but the screaming has shifted. It has moved beyond the range of hearing and into the realm of feeling. It is a vibration in the marrow of my femur. It is a thrumming in the fluid of my eyes that blurs the world into an impressionist painting of gore and rot. She is waiting for me. The pleading in her eyes has hardened into expectation. She knows the glass will break. She knows because she is helping me break it. I can feel the pressure wave guiding my hand, a subtle invisible current pushing against my elbow, aligning my strike. I bring the hilt down. The impact is dull, wet, lacking the sharp clarity of breaking glass. But the result is absolute. The box disintegrates. Shards of safety glass, thick as my thumb, tumble onto the metal grating of the floor. They chime as they hit, a delicate, tinkling music that is absurdly beautiful amidst the cacophony of the facility's death throes. The lever is exposed. It is a simple thing. A red bar of iron, paint chipped away by years of neglect, rusted at the hinges. It looks archaic, an analog relic in a digital hell. I reach for it. My glove is slick with the blood dripping from my nose, and for a terrifying second, my hand slips. I grapple with the cold metal, my fingers sliding over the rust. The instant my skin connects with the lever, a shockwave travels up my arm. It isn't electricity. It is the song. The lever is grounded to the tank, and the tank is the source. I am touching the lightning rod. A vision flashes behind my eyes, not my own memory, but a fragment of hers. A white room. Men in blue coats. A needle entering an eye. The sensation of drowning in light. Then, the darkness of the tank. The isolation. The cold. It hits me with the force of a physical blow, breathless and absolute. This is not just a monster. This is a victim who has become the disaster. I grit my teeth, biting through my tongue. The sharp sting of pain anchors me. I am here. I am human. I am not part of the hive mind yet. I wrap both hands around the lever. The white mold on the floor has reached my boots. Tendrils, thick and pale as distinct intestinal tracts, are wrapping around my ankles. They are warm. They pulse. They are trying to root me to the spot, to consume me before I can act. The facility knows. The organism that Sector 9 has become is aware of the threat. It wants the song to continue. It feeds on the resonance. I am trying to cut the throat of the beast while standing in its stomach. I pull. The mechanism resists. It has been sealed for decades, fused by oxidation and the creeping fungal growth. I throw my weight backward, my boots sliding on the slime-coated grate. I scream, expelling the last of the air in my lungs, channeling every ounce of panic and desperation into the motion. The rust grinds, a screech of metal on metal that momentarily drowns out the ambient roar. Then, with a crack that sounds like a breaking spine, the lever gives. It slams down into the locked position. Silence. For a heartbeat, there is absolute, impossible silence. The pulsing walls stop. The lights flicker and die, plunging the rotunda into heavy shadow, illuminated only by the dying phosphorescence of the mold. Then, the sound of suction. A deep, wet, glottal chugging sound. Beneath the cylinder, massive valves have opened. Gravity asserts its dominance. The amber fluid, the medium of her suspension, the conductor of her rage, begins to swirl. A vortex forms at her feet. The level drops. It is fast. Terrifyingly fast. The fluid drains away, coating the inside of the glass in a thick, oily residue. As the liquid recedes, the support ceases. She begins to descend. Without the buoyancy of the dampening fluid, her body is subjected to the full weight of the world for the first time in years. She sinks, her limbs languid and heavy. The fluid drops past her waist, past her knees. She collapses. It is not a graceful fall. It is the crumbling of a puppet whose strings have been cut. She hits the metal floor of the tank with a wet thud that vibrates through the soles of my boots. The glass cylinder is now empty of fluid, but it is full of something else. Vapor. The sudden exposure of the superoxygenated liquid to the air creates a thick, swirling mist inside the tank. I cannot see her. I can only see the silhouette of a crumpled form at the bottom of the tube. The white mold on the walls begins to shriek. It is a biological sound, the hissing of 1,000 punctured lungs. The biomass is dying. Without the resonance to sustain its cellular structure, it is rapidly decaying. Sections of the ceiling foam detach and fall, slapping wetly onto the gantries below, dissolving into black sludge. The structural integrity of the room is failing. I stare at the tank. Protocol Omega is complete. The purge is done. But the silence I hoped for does not come. Instead, a new sound begins. It is faint at first, a dry, raspy inhalation. It comes from inside the glass. It is the sound of air entering lungs that have not breathed in an eternity. It is a ragged, wet gasp that amplifies against the acoustic curvature of the cylinder. I take a step back, wiping the blood from my eyes. The glass of the tank is fogging up from the inside. She is breathing. And with every breath, the facility shakes. Not the rhythmic pulse of before, but violent, erratic tremors. The mist inside the tank swirls, disturbed by movement. A hand presses against the glass. It is not the floating, ethereal touch from the video log. It is a hard, desperate slap. The palm leaves a streak in the condensation. Then another hand. She is trying to stand. The air in the room grows cold, plunging below freezing in seconds. Frost blooms on the console in front of me, traversing the metal like a time-lapse video of winter. The puddles of sludge on the floor harden into black ice. My breath clouds in front of me. The heat is being sucked out of the environment, drawn toward the tank. She is an energetic void. I need to leave. The realization is slow, sluggish, pushing through the hypothermic haze of my mind. The mission is technically a failure. I haven't neutralized the threat, I've just changed its state of matter. I turn toward the exit, my boots crunching on the frozen fungal matter. The blast door at the far end of the gantry is sealed, covered in a thick layer of the hardened white growth. I have to manually crank it open. I take one step, then another. Asterisk crack. Asterisk. The sound is distinct. It comes from behind me. It is not the settling of the building. It is the sound of the main containment cylinder finally succumbing to the pressure differential. I freeze. I do not want to turn around. Every instinct in my reptilian brain screams at me to run, to scramble over the railing, to dive into the dark abyss below rather than look back. But I am paralyzed. The sound of falling glass cascades through the room, a waterfall of diamonds crashing onto steel. There is no barrier now. No fluid. No glass. Just the air between me and Subject 89. I turn. I have to. She is standing amidst the ruin of her prison. She is naked, her skin translucent and veined with blue, shivering violently in the cold she has created. The wires and tubes that were embedded in her spine have ripped free, trailing behind her like severed umbilical cords. Dripping dark fluids onto the ice. She is hunched over, her spine curved, her limbs too long for her torso. She looks like an insect unfolding from a chrysalis. She lifts her head. The movement is jerky, accompanied by the popping of joints. Her eyes are no longer crimson. They are white. Solid, milk-white orbs with no iris, no pupil. They are not looking at me, they are looking through me, seeing the thermal signature of my fear. The electrical impulses of my dying nervous system. She opens her mouth. The unhinged jaw snaps back into place with a sickening crunch. She tests it, moving her chin side to side. Then she speaks. It is not a scream. It is not a roar. It is a whisper, yet it carries the acoustic weight of a thunderclap. It originates from everywhere at once, from the walls, from the floor, from the blood in my ears. Quiet, she whispers. The word hits me physically. It throws me backward. I fly through the air, the wind knocked out of me, and slam into the console. The metal digs into my spine. I slide down to the floor, gasping, unable to draw a breath. The world is spinning. The frost is spreading rapidly across the floor, racing toward me. She steps over the broken glass. Her feet do not bleed. She walks with a terrifying, stuttering gait, twitching with every step, adjusting to gravity, adjusting to freedom. I fumble for my utility knife, but my fingers are numb, useless blocks of wood. I dropped it. It lies 3 feet away, frozen to the grate. She is closing the distance. She does not look angry. She looks curious. She tilts her head, listening to the sound of my heart struggling to beat. The white mold around us has turned to gray ash, crumbling into dust that swirls in the freezing updraft. The facility isn't just dying, it's being erased. She stops 5 feet from me. The cold radiating off her is intense enough to burn. I look up, my vision tunneling. I am going to die here. I am going to become a frozen statue in the tomb of Sector 9, another warning for the next fool who thinks they can uncover the truth. She reaches out a hand. Her fingers are impossibly long, the nails cracked and jagged. She points a finger at my chest. You, she whispers. The voice is inside my head. Loud. My heart stutters. She can hear my heartbeat. It's too loud for her. To a creature of pure resonance, my biology is noise pollution. I try to slow my breathing. I try to calm the frantic pounding in my chest. I have to become silent. I have to become the void. She takes another step. I close my eyes. I wait for the end. I wait for the frequency that will liquefy my bones. But it doesn't come. Instead, the floor beneath us lurches. A catastrophic failure of the supports. The entire rotunda groans, tilting wildly to the left. The accumulated stress of the resonance and the rapid temperature drop has snapped the main struts. Gravity shifts. I slide. She slides. We are tumbling together across the ice-slicked floor, sliding toward the edge of the platform. Toward the darkness of the central shaft that drops down into the bowels of the earth, into Sector 10. I scramble for a handhold, my gloves tearing on the grating. I catch the edge of a railing. My shoulder pops, a flash of hot pain in the freezing cold. I dangle over the abyss. I look up. She did not catch herself. She is falling. But she isn't screaming. As she plummets past me into the dark, she is laughing. A sound of pure, unadulterated madness that echoes up the shaft, bouncing off the walls. Growing louder and louder until it is the only thing in the universe. The laughter does not stop. It merely stretches, elongating as it descends, transforming from a human sound into a Doppler-shifted wail that vibrates the very rivets of the gantry I cling to. It is a frequency that belongs to whales, to shifting tectonic plates, to things that exist in the crushing dark where light is a myth. My left arm screams, a white-hot lance of agony radiating from the socket where the humerus has been wrenched from its housing. But my right hand is a vice clamped over the jagged lip of the steel grating. I hang there, suspended over the throat of the world, listening to Subject 89 become a part of the geology below. For a moment, the temptation to let go is seductive. It is a physical pull, stronger than gravity. To fall is to surrender, and surrender promises an end to the cold, an end to the terror, an end to the noise of my own blood rushing through my ears. But then the survival instinct, that reptilian spark that refuses to be extinguished, flares up. It is ugly and desperate. It commands me to move. With a grunt that tears at my throat, I swing my legs, scrabbling against the sheer metal siding of the platform. My boots slip on patches of rime ice, screeching against the steel, finding no purchase until the toe of my left boot catches a recessed bolt head. I push. I heave. The world tilts and blurs. I drag my chest over the edge of the railing, the metal biting through my thermal suit, scraping skin raw. I flop onto the grating like a landed fish, gasping in the freezing air that tastes of copper and ancient dust. I lie there for what feels like an hour, though it may only be seconds, my cheek pressed against the frozen diamond plate floor. The facility groans around me. The structural integrity is failing. Deep inside the walls, massive tension cables are snapping with sounds like gunshot retorts, echoing through the labyrinthine ventilation shafts. I have to move. The thought is a heavy stone in my mind. I force myself to my knees. My left arm hangs uselessly at my side, a dead weight of meat and bone. I reach across with my right hand, gripping the wrist, and cradle it against my stomach. The pain is a nauseating tide, ebbing and flowing with every beat of my heart, but it serves a purpose. It anchors me. It reminds me that I am still biology, not yet geometry. I am still flesh, not yet resonance. I stand, swaying like a drunkard in the flickering light of the emergency strobes. The rotunda is a graveyard of technology. The massive containment glass is gone. The consoles are slag and sparks. The white mold that covered everything has disintegrated into a fine, gray powder that coats the floor like volcanic ash. Every step kicks up a small cloud of this dust, which hangs in the air, refusing to settle. I begin the long limp toward the blast doors. The journey back through Sector 9 is not a walk, it is an excavation of memory. The corridors, once sterile and white, are now tombs. I pass the observation deck where Miller died. There is nothing left of him but a stain on the wall, a shadow burned into the paint where the biological matter was scrubbed away by the sonic purge. The silence here is heavy, pressurized. It pushes against my eardrums. I realize then that Subject 89 was right. I am loud. My breathing is a gale. The creak of my boots is an earthquake. The fabric of my suit rubbing against itself is a cacophony. I am a walking riot of noise in a sanctuary of silence. The air grows colder as I ascend the maintenance stairwell, the elevators having long since fused into their shafts. 1 flight. 2 flights. 10. My legs burn with lactic acid. My breath comes in ragged hitches. I count the steps to keep the madness at bay. 104. 105. The walls seem to breathe, expanding and contracting with the rhythm of the facility's dying power grid. The shadows cast by the dying emergency lights stretch and warp, taking on the elongated, hunched shapes of the thing that fell down the shaft. I squeeze my eyes shut and keep climbing, hauling my weight up by the railing with my one good hand. I reach the sub-level 1 airlock. The heavy circular door is sealed, the wheel coated in a layer of frost an inch thick. I stare at it. This is the barrier between the nightmare and the world. Between the silence and the noise. I lean my forehead against the cold metal. I am exhausted beyond the capacity for thought. I am a hollowed-out husk, carrying nothing but the frequency of what I witnessed. I grip the wheel. It resists, frozen solid. I throw my weight against it, crying out as the movement jars my dislocated shoulder. Nothing. I try again, kicking the lever, hammering it with my fist. The ice cracks. A spiderweb fracture appears in the frost. With a groan of tortured metal, the wheel turns. The seal breaks with a hiss of equalizing pressure that sounds like a dying breath. I push the door open and stumble into the decontamination chamber. The showers do not turn on. The chemical scrubbers are dead. There is only the dim, amber light of the standby mode. I stagger through the second door, into the elevator bay that leads to the surface. The lift is functional here. The panel lights up at my touch. I press the button for surface access level 0. The ride up takes an eternity. The hum of the elevator motor is deafening. It drills into my skull. I cover my ears, but the sound is inside me. It is the sound of civilization, of machinery, of electricity. It is the prelude to the chaos above. The doors slide open. Night has fallen on the surface. The high desert air is crisp and filled with the scent of sagebrush and dry earth. The sky is a vast, indifferent canvas of stars. I step out of the camouflaged concrete bunker, my feet crunching on the gravel. I should feel relief. I should feel the euphoria of survival. But I do not. I stand there, under the infinite sky, and I listen. I hear the wind whistling through the scrub. I hear the distant hum of the perimeter fence transformers. I hear the scurrying of a kangaroo rat in the brush. I hear the blood pumping in my veins, a rhythmic thudding that shakes my vision. It is too much. It is all too much. The world is a screaming, chaotic mess of auditory violence. I look at my hands. They are trembling, not from cold, but from exposure to the noise. I realize now why no one returns from Sector 9. It isn't because they are killed. It isn't because they are eaten or frozen or dissolved. It is because once you have heard the true silence, the absolute, resonant quiet of the void, the world of the living becomes unbearable. Subject 89 did not want to escape to destroy us. She wanted to escape the noise of us. And now, I carry her silence within me. It is a virus of perception. I look toward the horizon, where the glow of the nearest city stains the sky with light pollution. I can hear it from here. The grind of tires, the hum of air conditioners, the millions of voices talking over one another, the chaotic static of humanity. It is a wall of sound that I cannot breach. I reach into my pocket and pull out the data drive, the one containing the logs, the evidence, the truth of what happened down there. It feels heavy, leaden. If I take this back, if I tell them, they will come. They will bring their drills and their generators and their voices. They will wake the silence again. They will fill the tomb with noise. I look back at the bunker door. The dark rectangle of the open elevator shaft waits like a mouth. The silence down there calls to me. It is a soothing balm. It is the only place where my head stops ringing. I understand now. I understand the laughter. It wasn't madness. It was relief. I drop the data drive onto the gravel. I crush it under the heel of my boot, grinding the chips into dust. The wind picks up the fragments and scatters them into the dark. I turn my back on the lights of the city. I turn my back on the extraction point. I turn my back on the world of the loud. I step back into the elevator. The doors slide shut, cutting off the wind, cutting off the crickets, cutting off the sky. I press the button for the bottom. As the car begins its descent, sinking back into the earth, back toward the ice and the ruin and the abyss, I close my eyes. The hum of the motor fades into the background, replaced by the memory of her voice. Quiet, I whisper to the empty car. And for the first time in hours I smile.